I said going into the break that these two gentlemen have each a very interesting auction happening tomorrow. I knew about Joff's auction a while back, and then at the weekend I was paging through the business section of the Sunday Times and saw Tirhani Auctioneers, and I thought, wait, hang on, he's on the show on Wednesday. SANDF vehicles plus surplus goods and furniture. Is there a Unimog there that I can get my hands on so I can just kit it out and go up through Africa?
Of course there is.
How do you source these things? Because that must be your biggest problem in your industry, is getting sources. Because if you don't have goods to auction, you're not in business.
Exactly. You see, that's where the competitive factor in terms of auctioning comes in, the sourcing of stock. You had Joff earlier saying that they get instructions from, you know, portfolios in terms of property portfolio owners and private entities. Our company has, and it has been labeled so, you know, we have dealt a lot in the public sector.
Okay.
And as you know, the public sector, because we're dealing with your money, it has to be tender-based. So with SANDF, for instance, we've had this contract. This is the 4th year. And it goes out to the public, and you apply or tender, and we get it, and we go around in the country where they have bases. And when they've accumulated enough surplus stock, then we go to auction that stock. But from the buyer's side, there are people who have been associated with the SANDF in terms of buying for decades. And those people have businesses that thrive out of the stock they buy from SANDF.
So the people who run an army surplus store, for example,
yes,
would be the ones
buy
who
the old tents, they refurbish them their best way they do, and they then sell it on. They buy boots, there's a lot of stock that is there.
Okay.
You know, outside of the Unimog, as you said.
Okay, hold on to that Unimog for me. Your auction coming up tomorrow is a very, very interesting one. You've told me about this already, so just tell everyone else what's happening tomorrow.
Well, we're auctioning off a portion of the old Lilies Leaf farm. That's I'm sure everybody knows is quite historical for the Rivonia trial, the raid that happened there, and I think in 62 or 63, and the fascinating story of the missing Makarov Mandela pistol that is supposedly buried under the house. The farm stood there for about 10 years post the raid and then the long Rivonia trial and the dark days of the past. And the first house ever built on the farm post that time was this house that we're auctioning off tomorrow. It's never been on the market before. It's never been for sale before. And I think about 7 or 8 years ago, Nelson Mandela went back and happened to ask the chairman of the Lilies Leaf Trust, Mr. Nicholas Wolpe, you know, have you found my gun yet? And everyone started jumping up and down and going a bit crazy, and they bought a whole lot of houses, we think unfortunately in the wrong direction, and then found out it was from a different kitchen where they should march 50 paces. And they did another exercise and they bumped into my client's boundary wall. And they say, the reporters and the archaeologists and everybody else say the last few places it can be is on this property.
There must be, I mean, there must be huge interest in that auction then. Because,
there is.
I mean, that Makarov pistol alone must be worth a fortune.
Well, that's the thing. How do you put a value on it? You can't. So the best way is to go straight to auction. We've had queries from all over the world, Americas, Europe, a lot from England, firearm collectors, a lot of interest from South Africa as well. You know, whether they flatten the property and start digging it up. You know, De Beers wanted to, or De Beers or Anglo wanted to go over there with their sonar detectors. No one's ever been on the property to look and to see and to verify. So whoever buys it now on auction tomorrow at 12 o'clock is going to be the owner of a very expensive piece of artillery that's very, very old, that is supposedly the first weapon of the struggle from Konto Wesizwe and the only weapon that Mr. Nelson Mandela ever owned.
Right, now, I go along to either your auction in Centurion for my Unimog that I want to buy, or I split myself in half and I arrive at Summer Place tomorrow for your auction because I want to own Mr. Mandela's Makarov pistol. Give me some hints. Come on, man. Because there are a lot of people are going to auctions now.
What are the secrets?
Yes. What are the secrets? I mean, do you guys have plants in the room who just go, yes, please?
Well, the CPA Act doesn't allow that.
That's highly illegal.
In fact, even before the CPA
I thought that's how it worked.
No ways. Even before the CPA Act, your ethical auctioneer would not do that to puff up bids.
So what should I do if I'm going into an auction?
Preferably stand in the front and have a fit and just go absolutely mad. Don't stop for about 3 minutes and you'll buy whatever you want. Or everything.
Don't take that advice. If you're in the front, you can't see what is at the back.
That's a good point. Should you be at the back watching who else is bidding? Or do you wait?
Jeremy, if you have an ethical auctioneer, whether you are at the front or at the back, it doesn't matter. But what do you do if you want to buy on auction? There are a few things that you need to do. Firstly, you need to research what item you want to buy. You can't just rock up on the day of the auction and say, I want that Unimog.
Okay.
You need to research. You could even take AA, if you're a member of AA, and say, I want to buy that car. And the auctioneers will allow you to view it, to inspect it thoroughly. And you can even get your expert inspectors to come and, so that when you bid,
you know what
you're bidding for. And before you start bidding, you need to have a limit.
I was going to say.
You must say to yourself, irrespective of what happens, I'm bidding up to here. And when it gets there, I'll drop my hand. No matter how entertaining the auctioneer is, I'll stop bidding at this point. And you need to factor in things like buyer's commission and VAT and, so in your price that you're setting yourself, the limit, it has to accommodate, because if you bid for this laptop for 5,000, you may end up paying 5,600.
What extra costs don't I know about when I'm bidding? Once you've banged that thingamagwaji. Gavel. Where does that name come from?
I think from the judicial area. Yeah. I'd like to call it my tool, but apparently it's not really allowed.
No, you're not allowed to
stick
say
to
that.
gavel.
This is a strictly business show here. So when you sort of slap your tool down.
When the hammer falls.
Yes, when the hammer falls.
The hammer falls on the block.
Yes. What extra costs are you incurring?
Auctioneer's commission. In South Africa, it's really prevalent that a buyer's commission is charged. Be aware.
There could be VAT.
Correct. Whether we're on a property, whether it's an entity or an individual, whether you're paying VAT or transfer duty. Be aware if it's a movable auction, whether you're paying VAT. Be aware whether you are charged a license fee for a car or a vehicle, for instance.
Yes.
It's usually 1,200 or 500 bucks, whatever the case is. On our auctions, the VAT's a big issue, and buyer's commission. You must be aware that the corporates or the private auctioneer, it's not a sheriff's auction, so the hidden costs aren't really there.
There are no hidden costs.
There's no arrear rates and taxes to pay.
You're told about the cost up front.
Correct.
You must just factor them in so that you know what is your limit. What is your budget, basically?
Absolutely. We make it very clear. Conditions of sale, the bidder's packs, the registration cards, what you need to do, what you have to do, what you have to pay. It's very clear. We announce the rules and regulations before an auction so that, if you have an auction novice, so to speak, they know exactly what to do.
Are people intimidated by auctions?
Very much so. And also misunderstandings. I've had people, but also it takes an experienced auctioneer to notice that. I've had people, like as he said, the novice buyer, who comes at an auction, and I see this guy is bidding frantically, and he buys this item, and the next one is bidding again.
His name's Jeremy.
I stop and I say to one of my assistants, just check if that guy knows what he's doing. Because half the time, a guy will buy 5 units, and at the end he says, I'm choosing that one.
Okay.
Now he's messed up your auction because everybody's gone home. You can't sell again because remember, an auction is an event.
Correct.
You work towards a particular set date. For him, if that Lily's Farm property tomorrow, someone goes and is fake, he's messed up 2 months of marketing.
Yeah.
Now how do you go back to recreate that?
So he turns around at the end of it. I mean, if somebody bid for that thing, let's say somebody goes up and there's a bloke in America
Picking their nose.
and he's bidding on the phone,
Buying the wrong
and let's say it goes to 10 million rand,
Yes.
and you knock it down at 10 million. What happens, or can he come back and say, wait, hang on, I've reconsidered and I'm taking my offer off the table?
No, he can't.
Okay.
We do check our buyers specifically. You can't just phone into an auction and start bidding. There are proxy bid forms you need to fill out, commission bid forms you need to fill out. It's the same process via telephone as it is if you're there on the day.
Okay, so they're aware of all of the
Correct.
The technicalities.
The last thing we want is to embarrass ourselves and embarrass our seller. We do make it very clear, in fact even clearer now with the Consumer Protection Act, as to what you need to do, what you must do, what you mustn't do. You know, don't stand in the front row jumping up and down like crazy with a buyer's paddle in your hand. Ask the auctioneers for advice, get there beforehand, do your homework, ask questions. 90% of people have never been to an auction.
Yep.
You know, we have people that come to an auction 3, 4, 5 times before they buy a property or sell their property on auction so that they know what's going on. It's a very clear, transparent and easy process, especially from a corporate governance point of view. That's why a lot of corporates are using it now. You don't prefer one buyer over another. From a private seller point of view, it's very, very easy. It's also a very, very old way of moving your stock.